Hey, good evening. How are you all this evening? It is Monday, which means it's Monday movie review. I was busy all day today putting up lights, and so this is the first chance that I've had to do this. It's Halloween, so I also had to wait until I thought all the goblins were done coming to our door to gorge themselves on our candy. Yes, I'm familiar with all the historical aspects of Halloween, so please don't come on here and tell me, all the horrible things about it. We don't celebrate any of the horrors associated with All Hallows Eve and all that. It's just a time that kids come by and beg for candy. This week's movie was an interesting one. It's called Panic in Year Zero, and it stars Ray Milland. For those of you who are older than I am, I barely remember Ray Milland. He was a star far before my time, and he usually played kind of heavies. And it also has Frankie Avalon in it. It was made in 1962, and some other people, obviously. And it was interesting to me for a number of reasons. First off, it's about a nuclear attack against Los Angeles. And as I've said before, I was born in the early 50s, and we grew up with this fear of nuclear attack. This is a fear that has been reintroduced recently, I know, with the little situation over in Russia and Ukraine. People haven't really paid much attention to the nuclear dangers since, probably the 70s, with the exception of the rumors of suitcase bombs and things like that. But back when we were growing up, and some of you are of my age, you remember this was the big boogeyman. This was the big fear. And as I've said before, our family had plans to go somewhere if it happened. And this movie, if I'm not mistaken, was made in 1962. Cuban Missile Crisis, right? For those of you who remember that, and others who may have read about it. The movie, let's get to the movie itself. It was very interesting. It's not a movie that people who are much younger than I would enjoy very much. It's a movie that's much like, I think it was in black and white. Not that makes a difference. I can enjoy a movie that's in black and white. It shows the dates of it. The acting of that time was much different than the acting of this day. The directing was much different. The editing was much different. The script writing was much different. It's a blast from the past. It's a view into how they did things back then and how they thought about things. I've written 2 pages of notes here. Some of them things that the people said that I thought were very interesting, and it's been a couple of days since I watched it, and it was a movie with so much in it that it's difficult to describe it smoothly. Okay, I know I'm going to leave some things out, and I'm not going to try to put everything in there because if you want to watch it, I don't want to spoil the story for you. But it really has the makings of a cult classic, and if you're interested, I'm not going to say you're going to learn a lot from it, although there are some things in here that I think that were far ahead of their time. And the reason for that is up in the air. And I'll get to that later. Let me briefly describe the general gist of the movie. General gist of the movie is a family. Ray Milland's the father. Some woman is the mother. I don't know who she is. Frankie Avalon was a teenage son. A girl was a teenage daughter, and they're getting up early in the morning, and they're headed off with their camper to go on vacation out camping up into the mountains east of LA or somewhere. They're going to a camp that they have gone to before. And so they're all, the adults are happy and the kids are grumbling and they get in the back seat and they're sleeping. And so Ray Milland is driving, and it's funny because it's if you remember those old scenes to where people, when they had a shot of two people in the front seat, they're sitting real close together. So the camera can see everybody. So they're driving, and all of a sudden there's a flash behind them, and he's like, oh, what's that? And they say, lightning? Was it lightning? Well, I don't see any storm or anything like that. And then it happens again, and he pulls over, and they get out of the car, and they look, and here's another flash. And they're looking at it, and it doesn't blind them or anything. Maybe it's too far away. I don't know what the situation was. Low yield, whatever the situation was. They needed it for the film. And then they're like, they are understanding maybe what the situation is. And I forget whether it's this scene or a later scene, but eventually they see this explosion, this mushroom cloud forming, and then there's a conversation. Well, it's right over L.A. And the mother says, we need to get back. We need to get back to Mother. She's there all alone. And he says, we can't go back. Anyway, they continue on. And they come to a gas station to get some more gas. Another guy is there getting gas, and the attendant says, it'll be $4, whatever. And the guy says, well, I don't have any money. I didn't have time to get any money. And the attendant says, well, that's your tough luck. And the guy punches him, knocks him out, and then takes off in his car. Well, this is the first that Ray Milland, our hero, sees, wow, things have really changed. Society is changing. I've never seen anybody punch somebody out for $4 worth of gas, right? And so the guy comes to it and he says, well, that sucks. I've never been punched for $4 of gas before. Ray Milland says, fill me up. And, so now the guy says, cash first. So we're starting to see now that as people are maybe understanding things are getting whacked out, they're wanting the cash up front. Well, they continue on, and Ray Milland pulls into a restaurant. The wife starts giving him a hard time, and I can't believe that in a case like this you want to eat. And he tries to explain, and he's starting to get a little short with her because she's questioning everything that he wants to do. He says, I need to find out what's going on. We'll need to find a phone. I need to talk to people and see if there's any news about what's going on. So they pull into this restaurant, and it's crowded. A lot of people are crowded there. They're coming together trying to find out what's going on. And we see that the prices on the menu have been already vastly inflated. One guy starts arguing about his bill, saying, eggs was 60 cents. A couple of fried eggs, just 60 cents on the menu. The guy says, that was yesterday. It's $3 now. So we see that, the price is starting to increase. I remember on 9/11, that morning, a gas station close by, they drove their gas prices up from, $1.75, something like that, to $6 a gallon. It happens anytime there's something like that, and it's going to happen. So he finds out, all the phone lines are down, right? So they can't get back. He finally tells his wife, we're not going back. We've got to head out. We've got to head into the mountains. We've got to get away from the city. So they're let's see. Let me flip here. It's probably time to start reading from this. So when she says, when the wife said, why do you have to stop here and eat? And he explains everything to it. And finally, she's giving him a hard time again, walking back to the car, and he turns on her and says, for the next few weeks, survival is going to have to be on an individual basis. We have to have food, a way to protect it, and a way to get more when it's gone. I found that very interesting because this is 1962. And this shows that there has always been among intelligent people, the understanding of the necessities when there's an emergency of providing for yourself. The idea that preparedness is somehow a new endeavor or a new interest is not true. And so he includes in there, I found this very interesting. For the next few weeks, survival is going to be on an individual basis, right? They weren't coming together. And I think this is probably true, that while people, when there's an emergency, they will come together for kind of comfort, to say like, what's going on, what's going on, what's going on. But I don't think that you will find people coming together as groups. And I think that's a mistake that many people make. They think that people are going to come together as groups and help each other out. They're not. They're going to be concerned with their families. Their family is the group. So there's not going to be any, I don't think, coming together of you have a family and I have a family if we don't know each other, and let's get together and try to survive. This is not going to happen. People are going to segment into their teams, right? Their groups, which is their family or their individual. And he put this very clearly. This is the situation. We have to have food, a way to protect it, and a way to get more when it's gone. So many people, even today, even those who have been immersed in the idea of preparedness, don't get the simplicity of that. We have to have food, a way to protect it, and how to get more when it's gone. So in 1962, I thought it was very interesting that they put that in there, a way to protect it. His wife continues to give him a hard time. She says, what do you want to do right off the rest of the world? And he turns on her and he says, when civilization gets civilized again, I'll rejoin. I thought that was a very, very good line that screenwriter wrote in there. And we can apply that to what's going on in our world right now. When, I don't want to be a part of a civilization that's uncivilized, right? You don't either. When civilization gets civilized again, I'll rejoin. So they get into a small town, and they get somebody at the restaurant says, I would suggest everybody's starting to pour out of Los Angeles. Everybody's trying to get out of Los Angeles. This is where the idea of the golden hordes comes from. Okay, with which I'll talk more about that in another one, because I do not feel the same way about the so-called golden hordes that most people do, and that needs I've been saying I'm going to make a video on that for a long time. I will. And so anyway, somebody at the restaurant has told him, everybody's leaving the city. I would suggest that you get off the main highway, try to find little small towns that haven't heard the news, haven't heard what's going on yet. And so they do. And they took off a little dirt road, and they come into a little small town, and they find a grocery store, and he's knocking on the window, and the guy comes and says, what do you want? And Ray Milan says, well, we want some groceries. The guy says, we don't open until 9. Ray Milan says, well, how much do you make between 9 and 5? The guy says, a couple of $100. He says, well, how'd you like to make that in 30 minutes of letting us come in and shop? The guy says, come on in. Okay, this was one of the first lessons in my book. If those of you who have read it, in the reversion in my first book, Jim Wyatt, when everything went out, he was at Joe's Kansas City barbecue. Everything went out. Nobody could buy it, but the people back there says, anybody got cash? We can fill your orders. Okay, cash is king. Guess what? For all of my friends who like the gold and silver, gold and silver ain't going to do it. You're not going to be able to take your gold or your silver and buy anything. People will still take cash because, you know why? Because they understand it. I'm going to do another one on that. Seems like every time I mention that, I have to do another one to explain it. I will. So he gets all these groceries, and you see the family, and the family's working together. You can see that the young man, the son, is understanding. He's understanding what's going on. Mom's still giving Dad a hard time. The daughter doesn't care, But the son, you can say he's stepping up, and he's whatever Dad's saying, he's stepping up. So they're carrying the groceries out of the car. They pay the guy with the cash, And then Ray says, is there a hardware store any? And yeah, up there, I'll call him, I'll have him open up. So they go up, the guy from the hardware store comes down, meets him there, they go in, they buy a bunch of ropes and shovels and things like that for preparedness. He says, do you have any guns? Yeah, we got some guns. They sells him a couple of shotguns. And so see, here's where Ray Milland is thinking about this. This is a smart movie for back in the 60s, early 60s. So he's buying those. He doesn't have enough money. So he said, do you have any handguns? The guy brings out, a few handguns. They used to sell guns in hardware stores. And one is a Colt, 1911. And so he has that. And he says, how much? $400 and some dollars. Milland doesn't have $400. He says, I'll give you 200 and something, and I'll write you a check. Guy says, well, that's all right, because it'll take a couple days for the check to clear, and I need to run these guns through the government to make sure, run you through to make sure you can buy these guns. I didn't realize that was a thing back in 1962. Guess it was. This was California, though, after all. So he said, well, I don't have it. And Milland racks around and says, how much? How about this? Is this enough? Well, the guy punches him. They get into a fight. The young man, the son comes in, picks up the gun, sticks it in the guy's back, let my dad go. So now they're working together as a team, and they're understanding that survival now has gone back to a more basic animalistic survival situation. They get in their car, and off they go. Well, they come to a place. Oh yeah, and then they get back in the car, and the wife is getting on him again. She says, after all these years, I thought I knew you. You turn out to be a stranger. You're just a person who robs people. The man says, my family must survive. Now I have a problem with this. I have a problem with robbing people. I don't care if there's no law. There's a way to get, some people will disagree with me on this. It's a reason why you have your own protection. You won't have to take it for somebody else, okay? If you're taking from other people, although he leaves them a check, he leaves them a check and say, I'm not robbing you. Here's a check. It's a good check. And, that's some squishy area there. So after his wife says that, he says, my family must survive. She says, intelligent people don't just turn their back on the world. And he says, in these conditions, intelligent people will be the first to try. I thought that was very interesting. What he said in a later part, I didn't write this down, but I remember him saying, someday this will pass, and I want us to be a part of the rebuilding. Okay, I want people like us to be a part of the rebuilding. Okay, so there's a couple other things there. They meet. Some thugs come by and run them off the road. So Dad gets out. Going to talk to him on the road. This is going quite a bit long. Talk to him on the road. And the three thugs are going to, I don't know, they're going to rob him. They're going to beat him up, whatever. And it turns out that Frankie Avalon, the son, is in the camper with a shotgun. And so finally, does one of the guys pull a gun? I forget. He might. I forget. Doesn't matter. Ray Milland yells now, and he jumps out of the way because the thugs are going to rob him. And he's got two women in the cabin. You have to protect yourselves, your family, and two women are just inviting certain types of attack. And so he jumps out of the way, and Frankie, from cover inside, or for concealment anyway, because a camper isn't cover, shoots the one guy in the shoulder with a shotgun. And it's interesting that later on, Well, Ray asked him, what was wrong with your aim? Okay, why didn't you shoot him? You barely nicked him. Frankie says, well, Mom knocked me out of the way. So here's Mom trying to get in the way. Frankie's trying to, and when I say they wrote this character as the mother, and back then they often had the woman being the one that was always causing the trouble, not understanding, not getting along. And I mean, it's true. Many times that's the case. Today, too often it's the men who don't understand. Okay, so this is an equal opportunity, no sexist area. Okay. Anyway, it's so they arrive at the campground. He does some good things. He takes out the bridge into the campground so nobody else can come into the campground. They camouflage the car. They hide it under some bushes, and they take out the distributor rotor, which many of you younger people won't even know what that is. But if you take out the distributor rotor, the car won't run. So they don't want anybody finding it, but if they find it, they don't want them stealing it. And then they find a cave, because the young man knew there was a cave up there. They find a cave. He realizes that the cave is where they want to be because of potential fallout. They go out and he has them burying caches of food and equipment all around. It turns out, well, I won't get into that. There are more killings and things. The mother and daughter are doing laundry in a stream one time, and they let a piece of clothing, or the mother, I guess, float down the stream. Well, the thugs that were on the road, they just happened to find it there downstream. Go up, discover the daughter, rape her. The men find out about the rape, the Ray Milland and Frankie Avalon. They go down to the house where these guys are. They go in and they kill them. Good. But the main guy wasn't there. The leader wasn't there. The guy that got shot in the shoulder, right? But he comes back. Let's see. He comes back and they go in the house and they find a girl who has been kept hostage there. That the thugs went in, they found this house, they killed her parents, they've been keeping her there to take care of them and their friends. So they rescue her and take her back, and so she's a part of their little band now. While Frankie is out chopping wood one day, the first thug, the one that didn't get killed because Mom knocked his aim off, he comes up, holds him at gunpoint, shoots Frankie in the leg. Okay, well, now they've got to get Frankie to a doctor because it's bleeding. He's going into shock. He's losing too much blood. They've got to get him to a doctor because it apparently hit an artery. At one point, the father finally says, well, let's see. Okay, they find a doctor. The doctor says something interesting. First off, he says, I can't treat him here. I've stabilized him. You've got to get him to a hospital, 100 miles away. And they have a little discussion about it. And the doctor said, he makes a statement that's very interesting. He says, I guess Ray asked him, what do you think is going to happen? He says, if you scrape the scabs off and apply enough disinfectant, there's a chance civilization might recover. Isn't that true? I thought that was pretty insightful there. If you scrape the scabs off of our civilization and apply enough disinfectant, maybe our society has a chance. I don't know. He tells the father, keep your gun handy. Our country is still full of thieving, murdering patriots. This was after an announcement had been made over the radio that some order had been restored. And so they thought things were good, but the doctor says, be careful, man. There's still a bunch of bad folks out there you thinking are patriots. At the end, so they're trying to get to the hospital, and all of a sudden they're pulled over, or they're stopped by some headlights. And when he gets out of the car without his gun. There's a lot of stupid things in here. You're going to tear your hair out. Why did he do that? But, like any other movie. And they say, stay right there. They got spotlights on him. And he starts to take a step forward. I've got to get my son to a hospital. And they lay down some automatic weapons fire in front of his feet. And then they realize, it's the Army. We're saved. So it's the Army, we're saved, right? And they said up here, I put down here somewhere, where? Oh yeah, in the radio broadcast before they got to the doctor, sorry I missed this, they said that relocation centers have been set up. Relocation centers have been set up, so this is where they're trying to get to the closest relocation center to get help for their son, right? And then when they run into the Army, we're saved. And then it kind of comes to a close, and at the end there's an end card on the end of the movie, and it says, there must be no end, only a new beginning. The last part of the movie, let's see how much, I better wrap this up. Last part of the movie was you could start seeing the propaganda rising closer to the surface. It was an interesting way to be done. This is, like I say, right around, I don't know if this was made before or after the Cuban Missile Crisis, but it was in the height of our fear of nuclear wars. And it had some good lessons in it for the people of the time. Now, you're not going to learn anything from it. It might be enjoyable for you to watch. Like I say, it's got all the makings of a cult classic. Have some friends over, eat some popcorn, and watch the movie and see how people thought about things back then. I'm not sorry that I watched it. I don't know that I'll watch it again. I might, just for grins. I might watch it with the kids and show them how we thought at the time. But it did have some good things in it. It had some things in it that even nowadays people new to prepping would learn from. If you've been into the prepping, world for any time at all, you're not going to learn much. But I think it's an interesting look back into history of how long people have been worried about that's what they were thinking at the time, and in many ways how similar the thoughts of that time are to the way we think now, and in some ways different. So, would I give on how many Stonemonts would I give this? I'd give this a 1.5 for information, a 2 for the story, and a 3 for cult classic. It was actually promoted as a horror movie. If that gives you an idea, survival horror. So it can be fun to watch. Certainly not one you want to watch to learn from. Like I say, if you're not doing it, you can find it on YouTube. It's in 10-minute segments, and it all plays together, and it can be fun to watch. Just don't expect too much. Okay? All right. I'm going to wrap that up. Again, that was, Panic in the Year Zero. And if you watch the movie, you'll find out why it was called the Year Zero, because it has to do with the United Nations and everything like that. That's kind of an interesting twist in there I didn't cover. Anyway, that's it for this Monday movie review. Watch it if you dare. And we'll be back next week with another one. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. So prepare well today so you don't have to do what Ray Milland had to do, taking his family around the country in a camper. You all have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.